Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodivergent Business Consortium. And today we have a very special event, and I have a special guest to introduce you. You probably know him because we are working for such a long time now and contributing to business growth in marketing. So today we will discuss mentorships, why it is important, and how you can create significant growth and contribution through mentoring. And we have our guest speaker today, the fabulous Terry Arnold from Terry Arnold Consultancy. You know, our mentoring or mentorships is a little bit different because it's a give and take thing. And I think when you talk, when you collaborate with someone, if it isn't give and take, then it doesn't go far. So Terry, thank you very much for joining today's live webinar. I really appreciate your contribution throughout this channel. And if you could just introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shah. And just hello to the audience. In brief, my career started over 40 years ago, and I've always been focused on the influence of global brands. You know, I was in advertising. In Unilever, that's where my career started. Then I went to become creative director of BBDO International. And then I built a consultancy. It was a creative in those days. I focused on the creative side of the business, and it was a creative consultancy, which, you know, was moderately successful. Obviously, I had high ambitions, put it that way. But, you know, it's tough. I won't go into that side of it, you know, all the barriers that you encompass in the way. But it was reasonably successful. I think at its peak, we were employing something like 27 people. And great learning curve, still focused on global brands, you know, companies like Shell, and I picked up Shell Chemicals as a client, and then moved on to get some consumer business from Shell. That sort of direction with the independent side of the business. And I always kept in the background consultancy, even when I then went on into corporate. Because obviously, the bigger brands, and there was a corporate aspect to the bigger brands, which I had experience in those areas, and it stimulated me, it excited me when it came to attracting business on the corporate side, because clearly, again, it's a higher level of skill sets and responsibilities. And then I finally went back in to an opportunity I had with an Indian company, Indian-based company. It's quite large. It was broadly speaking, it was a research company. They employed 400 people in India, and they wanted to open up in the UK because they wanted to capture business primarily in the banking sector across Europe and North America. So right up until the pandemic, there was like 4 years just during the period of the pandemic where we couldn't travel, and costs were prohibitive when it came to traveling. And finally, obviously, they banned a lot of the traveling. So I turned it on its head, the business, focused on the consultancy side, and that's where I am now.
Thank you, Terry. It's been a pleasure working with you, understanding you, guiding you through a lot of different things, as well as learning from you. So, everyone, today we're going to be discussing the value of mentorship. And we're going to be talking about working together, me and Terry, and all other people that we work with. Uh, the process, how do you find specifically a successful mentorship and successful mentor and mentee relationships? And then we talk about the future of technology. So, stay watch this space today, and we're going to be contributing how you can tailor methodology differently to get the results out and be successful when you are working with a specific mentor or you are mentoring someone. So, Terry, thank you. And to all the audience, if you wanted to ask us any question, feel free to ask us through the comment box. And we are live broadcasting this um, program, webinar on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and other social media. So if you're watching this through any other social media, you can also send us questions through the live broadcasting sections, and we will try to answer those questions for you. So, Terry, understand that your capacity, okay, and your working pattern and all other things, you have transformed and evolved. Um, how do you find it, the balance between you actually, when you were very young, that time, and present time, and how do you balance them, or how do you migrate from one space to another? I think our audience would love to know that.
I was very fortunate. I worked with, even in the early days, and we're going back to the 80s now. I already knew that I needed to be within a top 10. If I wanted to do advertising, I needed to be in a top 10 agency, and or what in those days we'd call a creative hot shop. And I was working. I got the opportunity to work with a guy called John Webster in an ad agency, and that was my first job. But my real break came when, as a consequence of working there for 2 years, I ended up, or I actually personally approached Unilever and asked them if I could have a job. In those days, they were quite open. You could get those, if your CV looked good, you'd get, you get an opportunity or you'd get an invite. And I got an invite to the agency for a position, and that was my first real break. It was Unilever, where I was not creative director, creative. I can't remember anyway the title, but anyway, something about creative. But it was pan-European, and it was I was transferred to Brussels, where in those days where all the pan-European business was held. And I never really lost sight. I did 5 years there, but I never really, and it was such a fantastic experience. It's such a great agency. I never really lost sight of what I learned there and the value of what I learned. And but I was so, in my mind, I was so ambitious. I was something like 33 at that stage. And I thought, well, I wanted to be in a more aggressive agency, because Unilever was really known for the fact that it was very sociable, very sensitive to people's feelings and sensitivities and all that stuff. But I needed to be ideally in an American or a Japanese type environment, where it's a lot more aggressive, advertising wise, and that's where I approached. Well, I had a headhunter approach on my behalf and promote my suitability, if you like, and I got the position in BBDO International. Well, that, you can imagine that was absolutely mind blowing, because it was such a. I was doing it was all the business except the US. That's the way in which they structured it. So you were responsible for all the brands across the world, except for the US. Obviously, they were very precious about, the US brands. So, my path suddenly shot up. And my acceleration shot up, because when you're working for an American agency, and in particular an agency as good as BBDO International, really the sky is the limit. I remember them saying to the chairman of the agency, BBDO International at the time, he said to me, it wasn't that I was being arrogant. He just wanted to remind me the name on the door is not Terry Arnold. It's BBDO International. So don't forget who you're working for, was the message that she was, or he was giving out, which, I took it all in my stride. I thought it was a very apt check on, my capabilities, if you want to put it that. But, they had no boundaries, put it that way. And I could go on and explain some other examples, particular brands, which I will do at a later stage. But, at the early days, that's in the way in which I progressed.
That's a great story, Terry. So that's why just we wanted to know, like, okay, the systematic way that you lived and learned years ago, and you still working and ongoing, I think, another 20 years. So, the systematic shift on the past one, like when you're working with video or other global brands, what changes have you seen recently that you think that was good and this is not good, or that if we had this system at that time, you could do more work? What is the change?
Well, I think, thank you for the question, Dr. Shah. I think, obviously, with the background that I have, many years of experience, and always being focused on global brands, because I saw that as the challenge, if you could, sort of mix with people that were of that standard or those capabilities, some of that will rub off on you. That was what I was, my mindset, if you want to put it like that. But there was a period, and I think I've mentioned this to Dr. Shah on a couple of occasions. There was one period referred to as the Big Bang, where I thought, I can't, all this technology, I can't cope with it, because coming from primarily a focus where, strategy was key, but technology was accelerating at a tremendous pace. And I remember saying to my wife at the time that, I was looking around for all sorts of other shall we say, less responsible type positions. And she said, no, why do that? Why do that? You enjoy what you're doing, and, just carry on with that, just accept it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was, mind blowing insofar as that, there was an element of continuity there, and I had to go through the barrier. So I would say, there was probably a couple of barriers, and there's ones coming up now that we all know about. There was then the Big Bang barrier. Then there was the all the brands started to do. They were on the internet, and they were using the power of the internet not only to do research, background, but to attract business. So there was that period of which one could say 10 years, something like that, where the markets were fracturing into their areas of specific specialization. People were becoming more specialized. And then, of course, you know, the cliche one at the moment is AI. And I mean, you know, Dr. Shah is mentoring me, and this is why we came together right at the beginning a couple of years ago, because he is highly qualified in AI and is helping me along that path. So, you know, there's various stages, as I would say. You know, the latest one, obviously, that everybody's jumping on the, I don't want to use the word bandwagon, but, you know, everybody's piling into AI and thinking it's going to be all, you know, the solution to everything, which, you know, it is definitely, you can see it's empowering people in, you know, ways that are almost unimaginable compared with the past. And you will have to make that quantum leap.
I totally agree with you, because you know the way technology is transforming nowadays. And if you do not have a growth mindset, and if you do not understand how you can tailor that growth mindset to your employees, to your family, and to all other things that you are attached to, you cannot grow. Because, you know, if you do not have mental peace, that will drag you down. For doesn't matter if you're successful and you are earning a lot of money. So in that way, a calm mind, and specifically someone working with you, a mentor, can lead you to growth to the next levels. So thank you everyone for sending lots of questions today. And we're going to be answering those questions in a few minutes' time. But before I jump into my questions, I just wanted to ask you, if you wanted to ask any other question, feel free to ask us through the comment box. And you are watching this live on LinkedIn and other social media. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodivergent Business Consortium, and we have Terry Arnold from Terry Arnold Consultancy. So we have our few questions, Terry. We just wanted to answer a few questions, and then we will jump into the mentor and mentee relationships. So the first question was, thank you, Redwan, for sending this question to us. How do you measure the success of a mentorship program?
Yes. Well, I'm actually developing my own personal mentorship, because you can see when I started out with Dr. Shah, well, it's nearly a year and a half now when we started. But I always said right from the beginning, mentorship, because of the value of my experience and expertise, I thought there was an earning potential in mentorship. And I studied a couple of the, well, not just a couple, many of the sort of mentorship type programs that were available, you know, either, you know, direct or whatever. And I'm still going through and trying to, you know, understand better what level and what do I want to offer. And I'm doing that in partnership with Dr. Shah, because he's got such a depth and breadth of knowledge and experience when it comes to the technology side of it. That, you know, we could make some shortcuts. So we will be putting up, or I will be putting up, a program of activity which will be specifically on the subject of mentoring, and there'll probably be a bit of a 6-month lead in to that program, where we can start to understand and gather data, because obviously data is key to most of things these days, so that we can start to make a selection of people we want to work with, and so on and so forth. So bit by bit that will shape up, and it will be a specific type of program that one hopes will deliver an ongoing quality, if you like, and return on investment that can lead into a specific program.
So thank you, Ridwan. So when you talk about measuring the success of mentorship, it could be many different strengths, because when you work with someone, like when I started working with Terry, we work in various segments and various settings. So specifically, growing and developing the way we do work, it's understanding, like, okay, if we are contributing right way, and as well as understanding the needs of the mentees. Like sometimes we need to talk to the people or mentees that we are tailoring our methodology with, because if they don't understand what you wanted to do and what you wanted to achieve, is going to be difficult. We have also seen some of the things in my past experience, that sometimes mentees, they don't wanted to learn the core things. They just wanted to do something on the go, like, okay, this is the thing that I'm facing problem with, so just solve this, and I will think to learn the core things later. And that time, if you're a strategist like Terry and me, when we are a strategist, we wanted to talk about the solid thing first, and then solving your problems that will not tailor these problems in the future, and you would know how to resolve them. So measuring mentorship success is a collective thing. It depends on you and your mentees together, how you can create a successful pathway, and that will tailor the success of your mentorship program. So Terry, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for asking questions. So our next questions, we have, what role does uh, reserves mentorship play in today's workplace?
Could
Uh,
you repeat that, please?
what role does reverse mentorship play in today's workplace?
What roles does mentorship play in today's workplace? Is that the
Yes.
question? Well, I would still say, if you want to, let's just word it slightly differently. What are the transferable skills that are valuable, shall we say, in today's workplace? I would say you can separate the values off into generic values that maybe lots of people think they have, but when you dig deep, you discover that maybe they don't have them in quite the capacity that you thought. But I would say teamwork, not necessarily in this order, but teamwork, endurance, because you need a lot of patience, and you've got to be able to stay the course and not be deterred and discouraged in any way. So endurance, open-mindedness, receptive to other people's opinions and ideas. So these are the sort of shall we say, soft skills that you need. The sort of hard skills, I would say, if I just, we're doing SEO at the moment with Dr. Shah, or he's guiding me on SEO, and each skill I thought I knew, and I didn't know them. I didn't know them at the level that was required, but I would say each skill that I come across, because the market is moving so fast now, especially with AI, you can do almost most of these things just under, if you just sort of plug in SEO, you'll come up with, some pretty good solutions on AI that are quite revolutionary. So, just keeping it on the point. In my particular case, because I'm driving a personal brand under my own name, you number one, you don't have the resources to delegate, put it that way. What I would say is delegation is probably also another skill that people need to have. And I was looking at a chart that plotted that quite well the other day. But anyway, so just keeping it on the point, I would say if you're starting to get into specific skill sets like SEO, brand development, everybody wants to put down brand development, because they think, if you put in the word brand, you're going to capture a lot of disciplines. But when you start to work, when you've had experience with Unilever, for example, you just learn so much. You really do. I mean, case in point, one of the things I learned when I was at Unilever, I remember asking, I can't remember if it was a creative director at the time, why does Unilever brands have two benefits? And he just, as you can imagine, he just said quite succinctly and simply, he says, two brands are better than one, but the secret is you've got to offer two benefits. And for example, if you're talking about, let me just get rid of that. Sorry. But if you just look at Unilever, for example, and if you look like, should we say just Impulse? So Impulse, which is a fragrance brand, or Dove is probably better, actually. Dove, which everybody knows, it carries two benefits. It softens your skin. And it has a perfume, not a perfume as in, a strong perfume, but it has a fragrance, put it that way. So it smells fresh, and it has an oil. It has an oil base. I can't remember what oil it is, but it's a natural oil. But, when you put it together in a single phrase, and you offer two benefits for the price of it then naturally follows that you're going to offer those two benefits for the price of one. And so psychologically, people understand, this is, it's not just driving home one benefit, it's driving home two. And if it follows through logically, then obviously you're going to attract more business. So, the long-winded way that I'm putting it, that's one of the things, again, that you learn from the skill sets, like, for example, brand development. Don't just offer one benefit, offer two, which if you look at my website, that's what it does, which we will build on eventually as the website develops.
I totally agree with you, Terry, because Saladin, the question you have asked, because when you are in a workplace, it's not just like you're going to giving it to the workplace that you work in. It's also creating the future employees. Like if you have a specific skills, you learn some new skills from the people you're working. It doesn't matter you are a mentor, you are a senior manager, and you work with junior people. It's also things that you tailor your methodology. When you implement the methodology, you also learn in return something from your mentees, from your co-workers, and from the companies, because that's the way forward. Because any workplace you go, anywhere you work, it's just like give and take things, as we discussed earlier, because you're going to be giving something and you're going to be taking something in return. So then you mature, and then you gradually develop your skills and update your skills, and you go to the next levels with the transferable skills that Terry mentioned. So thank you everyone for joining today's live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from a Neurodivergent Business Consortium, and we have Terry Arnold from Terry Arnold Consultancy. So I just wanted to move into our next segments, and we will answer a few questions later. Terry, we've been working more than 1.5 years now, and we have become friends as working together. I'm supporting you with technology. I'm supporting with you social media and all other things, and I'm also learning from your experience. The core work you have done with big corporations is just like knowledge exchange. So I'm giving something, I'm taking something in return, and we are creating new knowledge together. How important it is to get a good relation with your mentors, and how do you see this vital thing to grow business?
Well, I think, again, we've spoken about this in a very complementary way between us, Dr. Shah. And I've always said, I would say 20 years ago, I went through a mental shift. A lot of people would say, and in the agencies that I was working with and the consultancy work I was working on, obviously in an agency you can't fire a brand. Well, you can actually, and I think a lot of the more competent agencies do fire clients. I've got some very good examples. Maybe we talk about them at a later stage, but where very large clients were fired. I mean, case in point, Hewlett Packard was fired by WPP, and I went through that. I wasn't working, I was obviously in contact with not Hewlett Packard, with WPP. I mean, who wouldn't be? But the opportunity came along, and I didn't know it at the time, but the opportunity came along to get a foot in the door of IBM, and imagine this. In fact, it was Martin Sorrell who announced the fact that they were firing Hewlett Packard. I mean, Hewlett Packard was probably one of the largest technology companies. Well, it was like the third or fourth largest technology company in the world. And it was looking after mainly servers and various products like that. And, it was headline news in the media, obviously the technology type media. And everybody thought, what is he doing? He's crazy. That's worth millions to him. Little did he know, he had a game plan. 3 weeks later, he announced the fact that he'd appointed IBM, which, there's no comparison between Hewlett Packard and IBM. If you got that opportunity coming along, obviously he knew that he was courting that client, IBM, and when it was ready for him to announce. Obviously, he announced, he'd announced it in advance to Hewlett Packard, and but the way in which he handled it, it was really aggressive. The fact that he was using the words, or the media grasped the fact that they were being fired, and IBM were being appointed. It was a step up, and it was a strategic step up. So you learn from these types of experiences. And I was appointed by IBM. I was part of a 5-man team looking after, I can't remember the title, Creative Services Director or whatever it was worldwide. But so you get into that opportunity and you grow and you develop and you learn from those types of experience.
Yes. So in that aspect, when we talk about the relation between mentor and mentees, how important it is, because you were probably you had some senior line managers and you were working under them. How did you perform at that point? Like, okay, what about adding new things, or giving you new instructions, or learning new things? How that went work?
Again, I come back to the fact of being able to keep an open mind. Obviously, if you've got not necessarily a line manager, I think line managers, they sort of like come, well, by name, as they come further down the line. When you're working at a corporate level, like, with a client like, shall we say, Apple or IBM or whatever clients, those types of clients, let's just keep it on the subject of IBM, for example, because it is a good example of what you're talking about. I was reporting to IBM in New York, which was, the head office, if you like. And from a creative point of view, I was creating campaigns. Now, the interesting thing, when you start to work, let's just say like IBM, when you start to see the way in which they're working, and I was working from the UK, from my base in the UK, but obviously I was going over to New York occasionally in order to just do the face-to-face. But I noticed that they, I'll keep it very simple. I would get a brief on late in the evening, sort of like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the evening, and they would ask for the response the following morning, my time, GMT, which meant that I had to ask, the creatives, maybe a couple of teams to, could they work in inverted commas overtime, or could they put in other words, I was taking on the personal responsibility of creating some disruption, put it that way. I mean, most people have, their evenings pretty well lined up. They're going out somewhere or whatever, going out to dinner or whatever. They're, staying at home with their family, whatever, and you keep having to interrupt them by accommodating. And I was thinking, well, why is this? But what I understood just by keeping calm and not sort of like speaking out of turn with the head office, that they were getting an extra 4 hours, because obviously the America is 4 hours behind New York anyway. But so what they were doing was, they were squeezing the blood out of the stone, and getting the extra 4 hours by rescheduling everybody in the UK to work an extra couple of hours and, to come up with the solutions in the morning, first thing in the morning. It would already be on their desks because, obviously with the time difference, the solution would be on their desk and they can digest it during the day and come back, with their conclusions, the end of the day. So they turned the clock around to their advantage. And that was a hard, not a hard lesson, but that was a lesson to me, which, when I started, because obviously you have to start thinking. When I was doing the consultancy, I would never suggest to prospects or clients that you were, that you were only working a 12-hour or 10 or worse still 8-hour day. No, you're going to be available 24/7, 365. When you get that mindset going, people immediately have a different attitude, and it's not necessarily, it's not about always being available. Technology is obviously making us all more available, but it also enables you to control your time in ways which hitherto were not possible.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. So we have a few more questions to ask, and thank you everyone for joining today's live webinar. And the next question, as you know, this Neurodivergent Business Consortium, we support individuals. If you if you have some sort of neurodiversity, if you are a neurodivergent and you are suffering from autism, dyslexia, and any other neurodiverse tendency, neurodiverse uh, specific disability, we are here to support you with. So what we do throughout this, throughout our Neurodivergent Business Consortium, we support individuals to steer different type of methodology for you to grow and sustain to the next levels. So we have a questions from Noreen, and she just asked, how can mentorship program be made more inclusive for diverse professional? I know, Terry, that you have apraxia. So, when you're working with me or working with other people, how important it is to understand your disabilities, understand your gaps, or understand those things you are not capable to do it. How do you manage those things with a mentor and mentee?
Well, I think the easiest way to answer it is, without getting into specifics, is technology is already moving in a positive direction that will enable us to manage our divergences more easily. As you said, Dr. Shah, I had a stroke 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and through understanding, and I'm glad to say, whilst the stroke was so serious insofar as it put me in a coma for 4 days, but because, as the doctors said at the time, and when I woke up, they said, you don't have to be concerned, because you'll probably make a good recovery, because you've the stroke, fortunately, was in the neck, and blockages in the neck, are not so serious. So with that positive attitude, but you will have to relearn all your skills, because I'd forgotten, I'd had, through the effects of the stroke, I completely lost my memory and so on and so forth. And they said, you will have to probably relearn everything, especially your computer skills and so on and so forth, and start from square one. They use the comparison, for example, consider quite appropriately, think of it like a computer that needs to be rebooted, and that is how your mindset is now, that you have to relearn everything, so on and so forth. So, obviously my health was my primary importance, but my technology skills, because I couldn't even operate a phone, let alone a computer. I didn't even know where the on-off switch was on the computer. But with the fact that you're going to have to learn these things if you want to stay abreast of or catch up with everybody else, then that's a pretty large challenge. And I thought, once again, coming back to the mentorship, I did explore the market of mentorship from my own personal point of view, having those difficulties, with aphasia, which for those that don't know what aphasia is, and I didn't even realize until I had an occupational therapist that guided me through, but that aphasia is a reading, writing, and arithmetic difficulty, which is natural if you have something like a stroke. Those, and that can be a setback. But obviously, with my enthusiasm, I didn't want to see it as a setback, and I wouldn't even start to refer to it as being a hindrance in any way. I would just, with determination, just absorb it and get over it. in answer to the question, that's determination, absorb and try to learn and understand what is the actual, what is the barrier that you've got to get over. And because of, for example, you'll see on my website, I've worked over the years, fortunately, with a lot of charity clients. But if you look at the charity sectors, there's probably loads in the specific sectors, whether you're actually being subjected to one of these divergent hindrances, if you want to call it that, or barriers. There's plenty of charities, even in the locality, probably locally, that if you look on the case study for Big Lottery, you'll see that we had a reasonable budget, but in the end, to make the budget go further, we ended up having to localize it to get extra, to make it extra effective. But look on the Big Lottery case study, and that'll be a good guideline or inspiration on how, from a charity point of view, you can control and put your skill sets to good use.
Thank you, Terry. So in relation to that question, so I would say, Noreen, mentorship programs, there are many mentorships program or programs everywhere. So you will see there are people, they support with neurodiversity, they support with disability, they support with many other reasons. So when you talk about inclusivity of the program, it's, every person is different in this world. If you have a neurodivergent characteristics, or if you don't, if you're disabled, like the stroke Terry had. So you need to work with a specific person to solve their specific problems and tailor the methodology for them to become successful. If you have a methodology and that methodology you wanted to measure everyone, that will never work because every person is different. So when you have a programs and you have a methodology, you need to talk to, because most of the mentorships is one-to-one basis. So if you are working with one-to-one, then talk to the person properly, understand their need and niche, and based on that, tailor the methodology for them, how you can solve their problems. Because at the end, if you do not solve someone's problems, that will not steer their growth, that will not give you the success. So you need to solve their problems, and based on the characteristics of that person, or struggle of that person, you just finalize your methodology, and tailor that methodology to a specific intended purpose. So thank you everyone for joining today's live webinar. We are nearly end of our session, so I just wanted to share my screen and talk about what we are doing now. So you can see the website that Terry just have mentioned is terryarnold.com. I'm just getting it a wider view. So with terryarnold.com, we're working together to make it to the next level's applications. And thank you, Terry, for trusting us and working with us to make the next levels. And Terry has lots of positive feedbacks. And you know that when you work with technology, it's not like that you just started and it's finished. Technology will evolve, and you need to evolve with the technology to get the essence, get everything to the next levels. So with specific mentoring program that we tailor, we work with our clients, specifically me and my team, to support them with technology, sales and marketing, SEO, AI, and all other things. So we have a 360-degree marketing pattern that we tailor our methodology. I will go into there a little bit later. But if you see specifically Terry's capacity and the way he has worked so far, you can see that he has worked for Emirates, Edmonton, TCT, um, French Tourist Board, and a lot of other global brands. And that's the way he has tailored his methodology in the past, and he is bringing his old knowledge with the new generation. So when you have a successful business, you need to know what has happened in the past and how you can transform your future with the new added technology, all other things. So if you go to Terry's website, terry-arnold.com, you can see the end-to-end process of Terry. And if you wanted to contact him through the website, you can also send him an email from the website, and you can have all the services and packages, and as well as all the case studies. I think, Terry, case studies are the core for someone to build new things. So, when you talk about like a specific brand like Big Lottery or Edmiston or travel parking groups, what is your suggestion for the um, new generation to take from the old knowledge and transform them to a new one?
Well, yeah. I remember I was working for one of the case studies, or one of the agencies I was working for was called Energy House Digital, or EHD. And they're still, we still keep in touch and all the rest of it. And it was a very young agency. I would say the two directors, one was 27 and the other was 33. So relatively very young, millennials by definition. And one of the client services director, who himself was only 27, and he said, he said to me, we were working on Edmiston at the time, and he said to me, obviously he was he was digitally minded, very digitally minded, and very advanced. And I said quite flippantly, I feel really old school. I am in my 50s, whatever, and you're what we would term a whippersnapper. So how do we manage to work so well together? He said, what you've got all the he'd never say old school experience, but the experience you've got is of a different era, but it's still the basics of the foundation, of what technology today is all about. We're in a different era, but the principles are still the same. And obviously that for me put on, it was a bit of a light bulb moment that, he wasn't thinking of me as being, shall we say, old school. The values that I was bringing were different to the values that he was bringing, but together they were equal, and maybe you could call them opposite, or in different, they had different boundaries. But if obviously, like, what I was bringing was solid and couldn't advance without that understanding into the new. It just made it easier for him to understand how he was going to apply his skill sets. So that's, with one example, I would say, that it was, shall we say, the evolution and the value of the transition that I was able to make.
Thank you, Terry. There's the way forward, isn't it? Because you value the old knowledge, the original foundation of your business, of any business, and you build top of that the new things, because if you do not have a solid foundation, you cannot build something top of that. It will fall apart in the future. So everyone, thank you very much for joining today's live webinar. We've been talking last 1 hour. We are nearly end of our session, so we're just gonna go through with the Terry's case studies. He has a reasonable way to present each case study. So I just wanted to go just Apple one, and you can see the challenge that the company was facing and the strategy the company implemented with Terry and the results he brought for the Apple. So specifically, when you are working with anyone, doesn't matter you are in mentorships or doesn't matter you are working alone, you need to know and consider the challenge you are facing. If you do not have a challenge, you don't need to do anything because you are sorted, isn't it, Terry? So if you think that you have a challenge, that challenge you can steer a strategy and you will bring some results by implementing your strategy that will solve your problems and that will take you to the next stage. I know many people around neurodiverse capacity, uh, we move around so quick from one to another, and we do not want to consider that if we have a problem, we solve that problem and move that to the next levels. And what happened at the end, we don't have anything. You don't have anything because why? Because you're not solving your first problems, and then you move into your second problem, then in the third problems, and you just have problems and problems and problems afterwards. You don't have any results. So if you are a neurodivergent person and you are thinking that, okay, you need support, we are here to support you, as Terry mentioned earlier. Like, we're going to be understanding your challenge, what challenge you have. We're going to be working together to develop a strategy for you and then implement those strategies with our team and get you results out. And you have to stick with solving one problems and then moving to another, because without that you can't create original knowledge. And I just gonna move into our ND mentoring site now. So if you go to ndmentoring .nbconsortium.com, you will see the problems we have stated here, and within our work, what you will learn from the ND mentoring, and as well as our case studies. So, excuse me, and what challenge specifically we can tailor, and different type of packages. So you can select any of the packages from anti-mentoring anticonsortium.com, and we're going to be working together to support you to solve your problems and take you to the next stage. So Terry, we're just end of our session. We just have 2 minutes. In that 2 minutes, I just want you to add the key takeaways from this session today.
Number one, I'd say, doesn't matter what difficulty you are experiencing, don't let it be a barrier. You know, just be perseverant and push your way through in a positive way, with a positive attitude. That's what I would number one thing I would say. Number two, in my particular case, we were talking earlier on about aphasia, the reading, writing, and arithmetic difficulties that I had, personal difficulties. I wouldn't let them be a barrier because obviously with the types of technologies, you can now speak into, you can give instructions, daily instructions, even if you just talk about to the radio, to the radio station, you can instruct the radio to change channel or whatever, So, these technologies, and obviously with AI coming in now more strongly and being pushed, that these opportunities are now, just blossoming in all sorts of different ways. So I know technology is, paramount in most people's minds, but what you don't probably get involved with is the individual channels and the specific channels to go down, which again, Dr. Shah can help you with, that really address the specific issues that you might have. So those would be my two main points of advice. Don't let technology be a barrier, and don't be discouraged by any setbacks that you may imagine that you have.
Thank you, Terry. And thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. And we are just nearly into our session. So Terry, just stay on the line. I will just say bye-bye to the audience. So thank you, everyone, for joining today's live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodivergent Business Consortium. And we have today talk about mentorships and the importance of mentorships with Terry Arnold, as we working together, mentoring Terry for digital technology, AI, and all of the things, supporting him end-to-end was my challenge. And in somewhat, we could solve some of the problems. But problems will occur your lives throughout. You need to work patiently to solve those problems. And if you cannot solve those problems by yourself, you can talk to someone. They can really help you and prioritize to solve your problems. So I have other lives this week and next week. So if you wanted to tune in all those lives, feel free to go to our different pages, and you can see the lives that I am tailoring and working with different speakers, as well as adding original knowledge. So until my next program, stay tuned, and we will talk to you tomorrow. As I said, we're going to be talking about AI and the future of AI in business development. So until tomorrow, stay tuned. Bye-bye. And I will welcome you tomorrow on my live.